Islam only added to the pain and horror for Muslims.
Two New Hampshire men who were children in 2001 talked to our Mike Cherry about growing up with that unwelcome connection.
Daily salah, or prayer, forms one of the 5 pillars in the Islamic faith.
We pray 5 times a day at various points during the day, early morning, midday, afternoon, evening, and then night. I think it really gives you a chance to disconnect from whatever else is going on in life and just ground yourself.
On September 11th, 2001, Omar Hasnin would come to understand its importance.
I was in the first grade, the first week of first grade, so that's probably six or seven.
Shiraz Rashid was a 7th grader in Salem.
I distinctly remember being in a science class. And in my science class, I remember our principal coming on the loudspeaker, explaining the events that had just transpired.
Among the few Muslims in their school, both immediately felt increased attention.
As a kid, it's confusion. You don't really know why, because to your mind, you're just a kid like everybody else in school.
If you asked me on September 10th or even before that, I was just, Shiraz Rashid, that kid, that quiet kid that did his homework. After September 11th, I became Shiraz Rashid, the Muslim.
During the 24/7 news cycle, the terrorists and their ties to Islam were dissected across the airwaves. Shiraz and Omar encountered people who channeled their fears, anger, and confusion at anyone who even slightly resembled the attackers. Over time, both men say they learned to use those encounters as an opportunity to teach the true meaning of being a Muslim.
There is a verse in the Quran where we believe God says in the Quran, He's written it, that to kill a life is to kill all of humanity. But to save a life, it is like you have saved all of humanity. So understanding that and internalizing that verse and then seeing the acts of that day, that's an anti-pattern. It's not how it works.
In the near future, the Islamic Society of Manchester will open up the largest mosque in the state. The intention is for the building to not only be a beacon of light for Muslims, but for the entire community.
Ultimately, we're all just people. And I think if you spend some time to really sit down and just have a conversation, that can go a long way to having people understand that this is just a guy, he just wants the same things from life as I do.
People are now seeing us, as neighbors, as community members, as people who are giving back to their society. So I think it's gotten a lot better since that time. Nevertheless, there's always work to do, right? There's always the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I like to think the good has prevailed since that time.
Boston's Logan Airport is now armed with some of the most advanced technology in the country, and hundreds of prohibited items have been found in carry-on bags and passengers in recent years. But the people tasked with protecting airports and travelers say the risk is still real. They work always with the awareness that they need 100% success, while terrorists need few opportunities to create chaos. But the resources now include an entire agency created because of 9/11. The Transportation Security Agency was a direct response to the attacks.
Keep in mind, prior to 9/11, security at airports was the responsibility of the airlines, and they typically carried that out through contract companies, right? So today, I think the professionalism that's been brought to this entire initiative across the country, I think people should feel very comfortable about what the aviation industry has done, and that as an industry, we continue to be very proactive.
Kevin Dillon was the director of the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport back in 2001. He remembers the collaboration between city agencies as they figured out how to respond here, often relying on information he was receiving from the FAA. Both Dillon and the airport's current director say the current focus on standardizing security is an important change.
That's probably the most long-lasting change that I've seen, is better coordination and better information sharing so that we all have greater situational awareness, as we call it, about what is going on, not only at the airport, but on a global perspective. I mean, aviation is a 24/7, 365 business.
Both airport directors say other changes include the obvious things like enhanced passenger screenings to the less visible protections, like stronger cockpit doors.
So in the hours after the tragedy, people gathered in communities all across New Hampshire, including one town where one moment between a father and a young daughter moved us. Now, 20 years later, WMUR's Gene Mackin caught up with both of them.
people lined the streets of Laconia, holding onto flags, leaning on each other.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was like the day after 9/11. And that was a promptu community come together, moment of silence.
Silence only broken by the bells. And that day, there was this moment, the little girl with the blonde curls saluting as she looked up to her father, Laconia police officer Steve Orton.
So I brought her with me, and when she got there, it was the right moment, right time, right experience.
Kayla has a daughter of her own now, Scout, and remembers what it was like being a child during 9/11.
Like, it was scary. It was scary. It was confusing as a 6-year-old to look at that and not completely understand what had happened, but as to grow up and look back at that and now have a better appreciation for those who put their lives on the line.
That includes her own father. The anniversary takes him right back to the morning of September 11th.
I had just got off a midnight shift. I had gone home and had gone to bed, and I just remember my wife screaming.
He watched on TV with the rest of the nation, but through the lens of a police officer, witnessing fellow first responders running toward danger at Ground Zero.
I don't think anybody chooses to be a hero. They just choose to help people. And I don't think any of those men and women, fire department, police department, they thought they were going there to save people. I don't think they even imagined that the building would collapse, and I don't think it would have mattered if they knew it would or wouldn't. They would have gone anyway.
Today, a memorial stands in Laconia with a piece of the Twin Towers and an engraved promise we will never forget. A photograph of this moment hangs in the Orton family home to remind them. And Kayla says one day she'll teach her daughter, like her father taught her, about that day and about the heroes deserving a salute.
This day will never be forgotten.
And that promise to never forget will be on full display all across New Hampshire tomorrow, thanks to a tradition known as Flags on the 48. Hikers carry American flags to the top of all 48 peaks in New Hampshire that are at least 4,000 feet.
9/11 was one of those generational moments that everyone always seems to remember where they were when it happened. And to be able to honor all those people that were lost in doing something that we love, that's what Flags on the 48 is really what it's all really about.
It's too easy for us to get caught up in our day-to-day lives, too easy for us to pay attention to the things that don't really matter in life and not remember the really important things like over 3,000 people who died for no good reason on a Tuesday in September.
You don't have to register for Flags on the 48. You can just go to their website for any information on where and when to gather if you are interested in taking part. And there are also some peaks available to non-hikers like Wildcat and Cannon Mountains, where the ski lifts can carry visitors close to the summit.
Thank you very much for joining us and helping us to ensure that we never forget the significance of September 11th.
Good night.